Discapacidad Televisión.
¡Hola mundo!
Primer canal de televisión dedicado al colectivo de personas con discapacidad desde 2006.
Hola, bienvenidos a Discapacidad Televisión. Recuerda suscribirte para no perderte los últimos estrenos y programas en vivo. Danos un me gusta, y así nos ayudarás a conocerte mejor, y saber qué programación es tu favorita. Por favor, no te olvides de compartir, así, más personas podrán disfrutar de Discapacidad Televisión y toda su programación. Muchas gracias.
En América Latina y el Caribe hay 70 millones de personas con discapacidad. La falta de infraestructura accesible es una de las barreras que enfrentan. Desde el BID promovemos la inclusión laboral de personas con discapacidad, el fortalecimiento institucional en temas relacionados y el desarrollo de estándares de accesibilidad universal en la infraestructura. Un ejemplo es el Programa de Sustentabilidad y Eficiencia del Sector Eléctrico en República Dominicana, donde se desarrolló una política de inclusión laboral. También se construirán baños accesibles gracias al Programa de Gestión Integral de Residuos Sólidos Urbanos en Argentina. Y en Brasil se han capacitado a conductores de autobuses para atender a sus usuarios, garantizando la accesibilidad a las estaciones y el espacio público. Además, hemos desarrollado una guía de servicio inclusivo para personas con discapacidad y otras publicaciones en transporte, agua y energía. Estamos haciendo camino hacia una región más inclusiva.
La Universidad Católica Boliviana San Pablo abre sus espacios educativos promoviendo medidas de acción positiva que favorece la inclusión en la educación superior de personas con necesidades educativas específicas, a través del área de inclusión, discapacidad y equidad, la cual facilita el tránsito adecuado en el acceso, permanencia y salida exitosa de sus estudiantes. Promueve la actualización en la formación docente sobre la temática. Desarrolla e implementa mecanismos y estrategias de apoyo equitativo en el aula. Aplica el modelo social de la discapacidad para transformar culturas y prácticas inclusivas. Todos los días en la Universidad Católica Boliviana trabajamos con entusiasmo, creando sinergias en la comunidad universitaria por la igualdad de oportunidades con responsabilidad y respeto, sobre todo personas.
¿Has escuchado que a las personas con discapacidad les dicen de todo? Minusválidos, enfermitos, discapacitados, inválidos, sordomudo, cieguito, retrasado, mudito, chuncho, retardado, pobrecito. No podemos continuar así. La manera correcta es persona con discapacidad o personas con discapacidad auditiva, física, visual, intelectual. Recuérdalo, todos tenemos nombre y apellido. Pregunta y úsalos. Todos somos personas con o sin discapacidad. No discriminemos, no ofendamos más. Utilicemos las palabras adecuadas por el respeto e igualdad hacia las personas con discapacidad. Coproder protege los derechos de las personas con discapacidad. Síguenos en nuestras redes sociales y visita nuestra página web. Consejo Cantonal de Protección de Derechos de Rumiñahui, siempre junto a la gente.
Discapacidad Televisión.
¡Hola mundo!
Primer canal de televisión dedicado al colectivo de personas con discapacidad desde 2006. A continuación, Footless EE.UU, más allá de una amputación. Presenta EE.UU BECKWITH. Características de este programa. Audio en inglés, subtítulos en castellano.
Hello there, my beautiful internet friends. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I am so excited to finally be back with you guys. I have been sick and out of it and gone for weeks and not able to talk with you, and I really missed it. So thank you for being back with me here today. I'm finally starting to feel human again, still a little bit sick, but doing much better. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about something that I wasn't planning on talking about. I wanted to talk about kind of deeper things and some stuff that's been going on, and I realized I emotionally, frankly, don't have the capacity for it today. So we'll save that for a later date. But I did want to talk with you about a question that I'd received a few weeks ago. I realized I've never made a video about this, and it's kind of shocking to me because this seems like a question people would want to know. I wanted to know this before I had my leg amputation, and that's the question of how painful is it really? How painful on a scale of 1 to 10 is it to have an arm or a leg chopped off? Now, I obviously only have the experience of this puppy being gone, but it's a very valid question, and the person in the comment section asked me, on a scale of 1 to 10, no BS, how much does it hurt? And I wrote them a 3-paragraph response because I was I can't just answer this with a single number because it changes over time, it shifts, and it's a kind of a moving target, especially for those first few months. Now, I do realize that this is not going to apply to most people watching my channel, hopefully ever. I hope you never have to face losing a limb, but on the off chance, you might as well stick around and learn some information. This was something I was obviously really concerned and curious about heading into my amputation. I could ask my doctor, how much does it hurt to lose a leg? But that seems kind of like a redundant question because it's gonna hurt. Something is being removed from your body that, generally speaking, is supposed to be there, and it's not gonna feel good. But what does that actually mean? Because I've gone through surgeries before, so is it gonna be twice as bad as any surgery I've ever had? And how long is that gonna last? And I will clarify that this is only my experience. Everyone feels pain differently. Everyone has different biological pain tolerances, and everyone's surgeries go differently, or amputations. So don't take this as gospel. This is really just my experience. As I was preparing for my amputation, because if you don't know, I had a few weeks to know that this is what was gonna be happening. This is a decision that I made. This is what we're going through with. So I spent a lot of time researching everything I could possibly think of about the process, and something that there wasn't a whole lot of information about is the pain of it, because it's variable, it's different for different people, but it also seemed like there wasn't a lot of consistent good information out there. So I'm going to tell this story chronologically, except for one thing. I'm going to be talking obviously a lot about hurt and pain in this video. I need you to know that it does have somewhat of a happy ending, because talking about how much things hurt is maybe not the rosiest subject to be addressing, but I do think it's important. So I went in for surgery on October 11th, 2018, got wheeled back into surgery. They sawed my leg off, which is still bizarre to think about, and I woke up. Now at this point, generally speaking, people are not going to be feeling a whole lot. They either give you an epidural or a nerve block before an amputation in most cases, and that should help with the initial pain, and then they got drugs in your system, so you should be pretty doped up and okay, right? I was an anomaly in that did not work. They missed the nerve block, so I woke up feeling absolutely everything, which was one of the least enjoyable experiences of my life. It was on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a 9, just because I'm sure there are more painful things a body could go through, but it was pretty bad. But that took a couple hours for them to get under control, and at that point, I'd say that's kind of when the normal began. So pain in the hospital, minus that initial waking up moment, was not good, but I would put it in the realm of bearable thanks to good medications. They did have some problems controlling it. It kept on sneaking up to a 7 or an 8 on the pain scale, which was too much. So they tried different varieties of medications, and eventually they put me on a at-home nerve block. They basically inserted these things into my leg that would slowly be releasing nerve block medication, I guess, for a week and a half. And that really helped because it numbed that entire area as it had time to heal. When I've talked to other friends about their experiences post-amputation surgery, specifically below knee, because most of the people I know are below knee amputees. Their experience is that the first few days are hard, but generally pain can be kept under control, especially if you're working with good doctors who know how to properly administer pain medication. So I made it back home, and from the time I made it back home to the time that I got my cast off 2 weeks later, I feel like things were pretty stable. I was in pain every day, I was staying consistent with my pain medication, but I'd give it like most days were like a 5 to a 7. Like, it hurt, but I could function, I could sleep, I was doped up, so it's all right, right? And I was warned that when my cast came off, things might get a little bit worse because we'd be releasing any pressure in there and disturbing it and all of that. And they were entirely accurate. Not everyone has a cast after their amputation. In fact, I think it's somewhat less common, but I did. That's how they felt I would heal best. So I went back in, had the cast taken off, came back home, and that's when the most uncomfortable 5 weeks of my life started. Phantom pain. Phantom pain came paying me a visit, and it is a weird thing to experience. I felt consistently like there was a cattle prod being like shoved up against the bottom of my non-existent heel, and constant like painful electricity. I don't know if that makes sense. And I would just sit on the couch and be in tears because there was nothing I could do to get it to calm down. One of the problems with phantom pain is that it's nerve pain, and a lot of normal kinds of medications don't really help with nerve pain. There are two, gabapentin and Lyrica. I was on both of them at different times and they didn't seem to do a whole lot for me. But phantom pain can be really scary and really hard to treat because it's your body doing what your body does when it's lost a body part. It's not an easy thing to work through. And it was scary because there's no guarantee that it's gonna go away or even reduce in severity. Some people have horrible, crippling phantom pain their entire lives. Most people it gets better for. Some people it doesn't exist at all, which I'm super glad for them. But from week 2 to 7, so those 5 weeks, I was in a lot of pain. I don't want to say all the time because there were some moments where I was okay, but when it hit, it would be like a 7 or an 8 consistently for like hours on end without really letting up, which was hard to deal with. Especially after a couple days, I started feeling like I was losing my mind, and I reached out to other amputees to be like, dude, is this normal? I don't know how to do this. I don't, like, is it ever gonna go away? And no one can have that answer, but I did start doing mirror therapy, which was very, very helpful. I have another video on that, which I will link in this video, but it helps with phantom pain for a lot of people. I stayed consistent with it for a month and it did eventually subside. After those first 7 weeks of amputation, I was at a place where I could get fitted for a prosthesis and start that whole process. And it was really funny to me when I learned that people get fitted for prostheses, for prosthetics, I should really know that word, like 8 weeks after losing limbs, because in my mind, I was thinking like, doesn't it take a body a lot longer to heal from something so significant? And the answer is kind of. I mean, your body is still healing, you're still adjusting, it's still really swollen, but you can actually start putting pressure on it for most people again. So at that point, pain was manageable. I was still on medications, but not nearly as much of them. I was able to get out and about and do some things and start trying to participate in life. And any of the pain that I was experiencing on a daily level was anywhere from like an aching, consistent 4 to like, you know, a 6 on a really bad day, and then spiking up with phantom pain, which would still come in zaps. It's just the phantom pain didn't last all the time, which was the big difference. I will say that that has thankfully stayed the case. I still have phantom pain. It's still not great, but when it hits, it's usually no longer than a few seconds of really painful sensation, but I know it's gonna release, and so it's a lot easier to deal with when you know, okay, this feels like hell, this feels like someone is literally slicing into the side of my foot that doesn't exist anymore, but I know it's gonna release in like 5 or 6 seconds. So that part still existed then and exists now, but is not something that I have a particularly difficult time dealing with just because the duration is not prolonged. So I got fitted for my prosthetic leg, and this is where, again, things are maybe a little bit different for me than other people, but many people do have falls. I had a bad fall in a restaurant, fell directly on the bottom of my leg because the floors were greasy, and things got set back pretty significantly. I was no longer able to use my leg. I tried for a little while, but I was like, this does not feel right. And over the next few months, a bursa grew, and there were some other issues going on because of everything that had happened. And so for that like in between time after I fell on it, I'd say my leg hurt really bad if there was any pressure on it, like 6 to 8 kind of range if there was pressure directly on the painful spots, which is why I was not able to use a prosthetic leg at all, no matter what we tried. But if I wasn't putting pressure on it, it kind of resided at like a 3 or 4. Not comfortable, but not something that was keeping me up at night most nights, not something that I thought about every second of every day, just kind of existed in the background. A couple months later, I had another surgery to fix those issues, didn't quite work, and then eventually had to have another 2 inches taken off my leg in August of 2019. So in August of 2019, the whole process kind of restarted because they cut my leg off again, like the remaining little bit of it, and I'd say the process was pretty similar again. In the hospital, it was not fun. It was painful. It was like a 6 to an 8 most days, but yay for good drugs. I had a cast on for 4 weeks that time. It hurt. It wasn't great, but it was tolerable thanks to pain medications. And once the cast came off, it wasn't as bad that time, and I was able to start getting fitted for a prosthesis about 7 weeks after that second amputation. So now that brings us to today, really, which is, I want to say about 18 months after the actual leg amputation. What does it feel like on a daily basis, pain-wise? Most of the time it's okay. Most of the time it's like a 2 or a 3. It aches a little bit. Sometimes I don't feel it at all. Most of the time I don't think about it. I'll get those phantom pain spikes that are really painful a couple times a day, sometimes more. Sometimes I go a day without having them at all. This does shift a little bit when I'm wearing my prosthetic leg. So if I'm wearing it consistently, it does still get aggravated. We're still trying to figure out everything that's going on and the right fit for my leg, and there's sharp pain, and I'm not sure quite what that is. But if I have something on it, I'd say the pain starts to climb a little bit to like a 4 or 5. But if I'm not actively interacting with it or touching or putting pressure on it, it's like I said, like a 1 to a 3. It's honestly okay. It's truly incredible to me how our bodies can heal from stuff like this and get better in a relatively fast time frame. When you're going through it, like in the midst of hurting and losing a body part, it does not feel like it's fast. It feels excruciatingly long, but in retrospect, if you look at it in the course of most people's lifetimes, it's a small amount of time that the pain is really, really bad for most people, and then most people get to a place where it's either completely non-existent or very tolerant. I have one friend who had an amputation surgery, woke up from it, was in pain from like the amputation itself, never had any phantom pain, and is thoroughly functional. He does not have any issues with pain, which is so awesome. I have other friends where their situation is more challenging than mine after they've lost a leg. Pain is more of an issue. It's hard to get under control. Phantom pain's worse for them. There are a lot of variables that go into this, but I'm not going to talk from a scientific perspective because I'm not a scientist and I don't know the statistics, but most amputees I talk to do deal with some kind of pain, but from what they've expressed to me, it's not at a point where it cripples their life every day. A lot of people deal with prosthetic issues. Prosthetic issues can cause pain. It is really hard to get a prosthesis to fit exactly the way it needs to. I think prosthetists are amazing, but a lot of it's kind of a guessing game and trial and error and seeing what works and what doesn't. So the process of going through getting fitted for something and getting it to work right can really be difficult. For instance, we're in the middle of that for me right now, right? And I just put on my leg for the first time in 6 weeks, which felt really good to be able to do. And it hurt. Like, again, just to assign numbers so that there's some kind of reference point, like a 6 or 7. Yeah, I'd give it a 6 to put any pressure on it. And if like I'm actually trying to walk normally, it just wasn't going to happen. So there are issues that arise. Sometimes I don't know why it feels bad. Sometimes it wakes me up in the middle of the night and really hurts. There are a variety of things that help. Like I said, mirror therapy has been really helpful. Desensitization. I always say that word wrong. I think I got it right that time. Massage, touch. Those things have all been really helpful for me. So the moral of the story here that I'm trying to tell is that it's gonna be a different journey for everybody. If you're watching this video because you found it through some Google search about how much does it actually hurt to have your leg chopped off or something like that because that's something you're facing, first of all, I'm really sorry that that's something you're facing. It can be scary and weird and overwhelming and confusing and all different kinds of things, but I just want to remind you that you're not alone. There's a huge community of super supportive amputees out here who will help you along the way with so many of your questions. I have found Facebook groups to be especially helpful. If you just search amputee support on Facebook, there are a lot of groups that are really active and answered a lot of my questions as I was going through things. And I hope that I was able to answer some of your questions about the pain aspect of it, how much it hurts, how much it doesn't. Again, that's may not be the case for you. You may feel fantastic a few days after your amputation. I have heard stories of that, but most people do deal with pain after losing a body part, but most people do not deal with that pain for the rest of their lives, at least not to an extent that is not manageable or that there are tactics for addressing.
Saying, "I don't see you as disabled" as a compliment reveals that we actually think disability is a negative thing, is a bad thing, is something that we shouldn't be. Microphone, tape, prosthetic foot. Hello there, my beautiful, lovely internet friends. The foot mic has returned. This way, no one can ever accuse me of putting my foot in my mouth when I say the wrong thing, because I'm doing it to myself. I have strep throat, so if I look and sound a little bit off, that would be why, but I've been cooped up for 3 days and I needed to do something. So let's talk about this thing that I often get told, that a lot of disabled people get told when they're active and they look healthy or they look like they're doing normal things, that I think is meant as a compliment, but in all honesty, is anything but that. Yesterday, as I was going through comments, I saw this comment, where again, someone was congratulating me on not seeming disabled. So when I lost my leg about 4.5 years ago, a very good friend of mine said, "Joe, I don't even think of you as disabled." And I know that she meant it in the very best possible way. What she meant is that she still sees me as one of the normal people. Like, I'm not different to her, I'm not outside, I haven't changed as a human, and those are all good things, right? And it felt kind of funny at the time, but I didn't think about it much further. But as years have gone on, and I've continued here on YouTube, and I've shown you guys some of the cool things I've been able to do, like run a 5K, or snowboard, or get active in the gym, I'll get this comment a lot, like, "Wow, you don't even seem disabled. I don't even think of you as disabled." And it's always said as like a badge of honor, like a compliment, like you did it, you rose above. I shouldn't be gesturing with this full mug of hot tea. A little throat coat tea. It's amazing. Got a little nub and rest here now. So as I've had time to reflect on this over the years, I've realized why it rubs me the wrong way and why it may come across wrong to a lot of disabled people. So on the off chance that you ever thought this, you ever said it to someone, anything like that, I wanted to explain why it is not the compliment that many people think it is. I think that this comment, more than perhaps any other, reveals how we as a society still think about disability. We don't think of it as a good thing, and not even like as a neutral thing. We actively think of it as something that should be avoided, something you want to overcome, something you shouldn't be seen as. It's a compliment if I tell you, "You don't even seem disabled to me," right? Here's the thing, speaking for myself, I am absolutely the definition of disabled, and I don't say that to draw pity or be a victim. I say it because it's accurate. If you look at the definition of what that medically and also in our society means, I'm disabled. All that means is that there are abilities that the average person possesses that I don't. I'm never going to be able to walk on my own 2 feet again because, as you might note, I lost one of them and I still don't know where it went. If you have any clues, hit me up, let me know, still looking. But the thing is that disability is not a bad term. It's not a dirty word. It's not an insult. In fact, it is something that most of people who find themselves in the disabled community fully embrace. I'll never forget when I was like 13 or 14 and I first injured my ankle, which eventually led to my leg amputation, and someone who was very close to me and my family sat me down and said, "Don't ever let anyone make you think of yourself as disabled. You are not disabled." As I was dealing with a very serious injury that would be disabling to me and eventually lead to losing my leg, it was like this heartfelt, desperate warning of, do not think of yourself like those people. Oh, and I say that out loud and it makes me feel so icky. Because in a way, it also establishes like a hierarchy of disability. Like if you're making it look normal, you're one of the good ones, not like those other ones that make it look so abnormal. The creation of this like good and bad disabled person hierarchy makes it really difficult to go through your journey authentically. It also creates sort of more internalized ableism, like I don't want to be seen as like the bad kind of disabled, so I'm going to try to hide it. I'm going to try to overcome everything. I'm going to go past my own boundaries and limits and damage my body so I seem normal. That's something I see way too often. Especially when I first became like visibly disabled. You feel like in your core that society wants you to appear as normal as possible, and if you check that checkbox of seeming normal, seeming like the rest of us, then we'll accept you. Then we won't give you as hard of a time. Then we're even going to call you inspirational and say nice things about you. But if you don't reach that mark, if your disability causes you to struggle and people see that, then that's where like the actual negative comments come in. Then that's like where all of the don't let your disability stop you, don't let it get you down, like that kind of stuff starts coming in. And where a lot of like the more gross comments that I don't feel like mentioning here start being said. In a lot of ways, I feel like it's calling someone differently abled. You're not disabled, you're just differently abled, which is like the bane of my existence. I've mentioned this in so many videos. I hate that term because no, I'm not differently abled. I am disabled. There are things my body cannot do, will never be able to do, and that's okay. That's just a reality. I adapt, I get through it, I seek help, I figure out new ways to do things, but I am not the same as an able-bodied person, and ignoring that reality invalidates so much of my experience. I feel like saying it's okay to be disabled is a little redundant and shouldn't have to be said, but it's a fact. It's just a reality of life for like 25% of the US alone population. A lot of people have disabilities, and that shouldn't be overlooked because we might be uncomfortable with the term, or we don't understand it, or we think of it as a bad thing. It's just reality, and by acknowledging that and accepting it, it enables us to better live lives, to seek accommodations that we need, to take care of ourselves well. No matter how much I do, or if I make something look natural or not, it does not detract from the fact that every aspect of my life, to some extent, is adaptation. That I will never not be disabled, I'm never gonna regrow my leg. It's not coming back, even though my sweet niece asked me the other day when it's gonna grow back, and I had to break the news to her that, honey, it's not. To which she responded, good, because your leg is cool, which I thought was very sweet of her. For me personally, as someone who has been able to live what appears to be a very active life, like I do as much as I can because it's something that brings me a lot of joy. When you say, I don't see you as disabled, it is also very invalidating of all the additional work and effort that it takes for me to be able to live life. In a video clip that you see me doing box jumps at the gym, which is super fun, super cool. I love being able to do that. What you're not seeing is the months that it took to learn how to use a prosthetic running blade, is the many days that I can't even get that thing on because it hurts so bad, is the changing in and out of the parts and pieces as I get to the gym, go from my walking leg to my running leg, have to bring an Allen key to like make adjustments to the angle depending on the day, run out of energy so much faster because the energy needs of your body when you're using a prosthetic are so much higher than if you have two legs, so I'm burning a lot more calories, I have to eat a lot more to fuel my body to be able to do these things. You're not seeing the price that I pay afterwards because it can indeed cause a lot of pain. You're not seeing the days I may have to take off in between doing things like a 5K or snowboarding, like the week after that I can't freaking move because I was able to do that one thing, which was awesome. But the cost that it comes at is not something that I can avoid whether or not, you know, someone else might actually see that. I don't think it's some grand secret that we do have this underlying current of thinking of disabled as something bad or worse in society, which is something I hope that we continue to overcome and face. Because it's not. It's a morally neutral thing. It's just a fact of life. Realistically, it's like saying someone's a brunette. Okay, you might like that or not like that depending on who you are, but they're a brunette. It's not good or bad. It's just a fact. I'm disabled. It's not good or bad. It's just a fact. It is a portion of my reality. It's a small part of my identity, but it is important to acknowledge and see because I cannot escape it. It's not something I can get away from. I just want to repeat that I know that the person leaving this comment, I know that my friend who said it, I know that people who say it to me in passing don't mean a gosh darn bad thing by it. They mean it with like the purest of intentions, but I wanted to shed some light on the underlying message because I'm sure this is something I would have said years ago, right? Like as a compliment to a friend, like, yeah, you're doing it. You're making it through. Look at you persevering. You don't even seem disabled. As I finish recording this, I wonder if anything I said just made sense. My brain's a little scrambled from the antibiotics and the exhaustion and the pain of strep throat. By the way, guys, I think I've become a big baby, but strep throat is like the worst thing ever. I've had it before. It's been like annoying, but this time for 2 days straight, I wanted to just sit in bed and sob at how bad it felt. It's like there was glass in my throat. Pity me. I'm just kidding, don't. But I mean, like, if you want to throw some pity my way, that'd be okay. Just kidding. It's rough. If you're sick, if you have strep, I heard it's going around. I hope it lays off of you and takes it easy and that you don't get it. But with that, I'm gonna go ahead and disassemble my camera setup and go back to sleep here. But I appreciate you taking a few minutes to listen to my perspective on that. I'd love to hear your comments down the section with the comments, you know, the comment section down below on if you agree, disagree, have you said this to someone before? You know, what was your intention? I'd love to hear your thoughts and conversation down below. I don't get a chance to respond to every comment, but I do read the vast majority of them, so I always appreciate hearing your thoughts. Well, Hello there, my beautiful, lovely internet friends. I have a serious subject today, which is why I brought out the foot mic, because nothing screams you should really listen to my opinion, please hear me out on this, louder than talking into a disembodied foot. So the video that you are about to watch is a deviation from my normal content. Usually I'm a creator who talks about my life as an amputee, hence why I have so many feet in my house, weird sentence out of context, topics around disability, mental health, things like that. But there is one specific topic that has been rattling around the internet for a few months now that is deeply concerning to me, and as someone who has gotten divorced, this is something I wanted to spend a few minutes shedding some light on. I got divorced a year and a half ago. I was in a very committed relationship with one person for a decade. We were married for 7, and I had to make the decision after a long chain of events and doing everything in my power to salvage things. I made the decision to leave. I've cut my leg off twice, and that decision was more difficult. And I always shudder to talk about this stuff publicly. Like, I tried to keep it real quiet when I was going through that because the amount of judgment and hatred that there is towards, I would say, specifically women when they are ending marriages, when people have no context, is intense. The reason that I was able to get divorced is because in the state of Colorado, you can state that this relationship is unsalvageable. You go in front of a judge, you make sure assets are split up correctly, you deal with all the legal bullshit, and then you can leave and make a choice for yourself on what is best for you in a situation that you are the only person who actually knows what is occurring in. This is the case, I believe, in all 50 states. It's still not an easy process, but you have a way to leave. This wasn't always the case. Back in, I believe it was the 70s, no-fault divorce was like instituted, but prior to that, you had to prove something was really, really messed up, like abuse, or infidelity, to be able to exit a marriage. And recently, there has been a growing conversation for bringing this back. Hi, it's Joe in a different sweater. I'll be popping up to add in details I forgot to mention because I was kind of nervous when I filmed this video. Republicans in particular across the country are reconsidering no-fault divorce. For instance, last year, the Republican Party of Texas added language to its platform calling for an end to no-fault divorce, saying, "We urge the legislature to rescind unilateral no-fault divorce laws to support covenant marriage." It's not just Texas, there's discussion of this in Louisiana and Nebraska. This was also discussed in 2016 at the National Republican Convention. Like, this is an actual thing that is occurring in our country. This is a movement that is being made, and it is deeply concerning to me for a lot of reasons. There's this one quote from a Rolling Stone article I'd like to read to you. "Despite its embarrassing premise, the only way to retain a partner is to literally trap them in the relationship," but the sentence continues on from then, but that's literally it. You want to cage people up, figuratively speaking, so they can't leave you. There's therapy for that, my friend. This first came to my attention when a man by the name of Steven Crowder, you might know him, made this announcement that he is getting divorced, that it's not his choice, that his wife is leaving him.
And no, this was not my choice. My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted.
It's permitted. It's allowed. As crazy as it is, you're just allowed to say, "I don't want to be married anymore." And I can't control that.
And in this big announcement, made references to the fact that, like, in the state of Texas, she can just do that, right? Like, legally, she can just leave, even though I don't want it, very clearly insinuating, in my opinion, that he does not think this should exist. He talks about how much he doesn't believe in divorce, doesn't believe it's a good thing for families, for children, for anything. His beliefs haven't changed. Then says, "In today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter." As if he is the only party involved in making that decision. After releasing this video on, him not wanting to get divorced, but this being something he was forced into, video evidence came out that he was doing some pretty damn atrocious things to his then very pregnant with twins wife. He and many of his contemporaries have said things that either allude to this or directly state it. Basically, what these voices are saying and pushing for is that you should not be able to get out. I think I can just end the sentence there. That's really the point, is that you shouldn't be able to get out. Once you're locked in, you belong to that person, baby. You ain't going nowhere. Unless, of course, you can prove abuse or infidelity. I'm not going to spend more than a couple seconds talking about this because I think it's a larger issue, but when you're talking about having to prove abuse to leave relationships, like I said, It is really difficult to prove abuse is occurring in a court of law. It sounds great to be like, well, yeah, you know, if abuse is occurring, you can totally get out. But do you have any idea what it looks like to actually make that happen? Do you have any clue how difficult it is to exit abusive relationships or prove that someone is an abuser beyond a reasonable doubt? Taking away no-fault divorce would make it exponentially more difficult for victims of domestic violence and abuse to be able to escape. And that is something that we should all be very concerned about, regardless of your stance on the topic of divorce. It is so bizarre to me that a portion of our society is advocating for this kind of control because that is what it is. All this is doing is making it easier to control someone. Oftentimes this is women, but guess what? It's men too. Regardless of your gender, you can find yourself in a bad situation or a toxic relationship or discover that you have an abusive partner. So let me take this back a few notches. Let's say that abuse is not occurring. Hopefully it's not, right? But this relationship is not good for you for whatever reason. You've done what you can to remedy it, to try to address it. It's not working. You have one life to live, and you decide that being partnered with this person is actively detrimental to you, to your mental health, to the rest of your family, to whatever it is. The idea is that you should not be able to leave because you stood in front of people and God and made a promise years ago. You signed a piece of paper, and you gotta be a person of your word. You gotta work it out. People just give up so easily nowadays.
Figure it out. Figure it out. But it's not reparable at this point. It's absolutely, the marriage is just beyond repair. No, it isn't. Just work through it. But there is something greater than your individual desires. But the marriage itself is an institution. And I don't care if you don't feel happy at this particular moment. You're not going to feel happy at every single moment of your life. There are more important things than your individual pleasure at any given moment.
So often the tone is people who just aren't willing to put in the work. You know, life isn't just about your pleasure every single second of every day. Have some endurance, have some perseverance, just work through it, right? It's just what people do. Don't be a pansy and give up. And I don't know what kind of divorces these people have witnessed or experienced. Maybe that's the case for some people, but I can certainly tell you, at least in my own experience and that of the people that I know, that this is not a decision you make lightly, even if it might come as a surprise to other people. The effect that divorce has on every single aspect of your life, financially, emotionally, socially, to such a deep, deep level. I find it difficult to believe that people make this kind of decision and follow through on a whim. Again, I am certain it happens, but you'd have to really work to convince me that that is the norm, because it's not easy. In fact, it's much simpler to stay married. Also, let's just say that someone is a lazy bum, doesn't want to put in the work, has never considered the fact that relationships might be difficult sometimes and just wants out, wants to leave. We might disagree with their reasoning for that, but who the hell should be able to tell that person that they are forced to stick it out, they are forced to stay in a situation they don't want to be in? It genuinely feels like treating people like children, like they're there, you're not old enough, you're not wise enough to understand what we're doing, so we're just going to keep you stuck here because we know what's best for you. We who have absolutely no idea what occurs behind closed doors when it comes to your romantic, personal, intimate life. This is kind of unrelated, but marriages are so easy to get. If we're gonna talk about staying in a marriage as being so important and you can't leave it, and divorce being made inaccessible to people, why can't I just walk down to the courthouse and literally get a marriage license and get married in like 3 days? Like in the state of Colorado, you don't even need witnesses or a judge. I can just find someone, we can sign a paper in the woods, we are now married. And we're totally fine with giving people that kind of responsibility to make decisions for themselves, who they want to spend the rest of their lives with. But beyond that, no. You can't have the autonomy to make decisions for yourself once you've made that decision already for yourself. If you want to make divorce a lot more difficult to get, why aren't we also talking about making marriages way more difficult to access? I'm not advocating for that, just so we're clear, but it kind of seems hypocritical and weird to me if the tone is that we don't trust you to make decisions. Another thing that is perplexing to me is that those advocating for this type of thing often talk about needing to keep people together to lower the divorce rate. And what doesn't make sense to me is that that is not indicative of a healthy relationship, of a good situation for two people or even for kids involved. There's such an emphasis on staying together, on not getting divorced because that's bad. But is it? Right? I've already talked about my experience with divorce. It is life-changing and agonizing. But the idea that we see divorce as a whole as this bad thing, as failure, and that the goal should be lowering the divorce rate instead of focusing on what actually makes a healthy, long-term, successful relationship, what do people need to thrive, how do we best serve each other, as opposed to making it harder to get out of a relationship that isn't working, is just confusing to me. Like in Colorado, the waiting period from filing to actually being able to get divorced is 90 days, but we had to wait longer because the judge wanted to talk to us, even though internally there was no dispute, meaning that I had to wait on someone I do not know, who does not know me or my relationship or anything about us, to grant me the ability to leave. Now, because it was just like financial matters, I totally understand that. Splitting up of assets and all of that, it's important that that is handled well and fairly. But that felt like such an invasion because I suddenly realized that some man, again, who didn't know me, my story, or anything that had actually occurred in my marriage, held the power to be able to tell me if I could leave it or not. And that is in no-fault divorce. The idea of that being abolished and having strangers who have no idea what is occurring, having the power to be like, nope, you can't go anywhere, you're stuck, is horrifying. To anyone who is an advocate for this idea of no-fault divorce being abolished, I genuinely want to ask, why do you want to control people? Because at its core, that is what it is. Why would you want someone to be forced to stay with you who does not want to be there? What level of unhealthy or insecure or just messed up is that? You don't get to own other people. You don't. You shouldn't be able to. And suggesting these kinds of laws, that is the end goal. Like I said, this isn't a topic I normally address on my channel, but I kind of like talking about some of these larger issues. Let me know if you're interested in hearing more of this kind of stuff. I look forward to reading your comments. Also, a big thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Check out that link and code down below. It helps to support the channel and is also a service that I genuinely have used. I really like them. I'm guessing you probably heard of them before if you've been on YouTube for a second. To my amazing and generous patrons over on Patreon, thank you for supporting this channel. And to you, lovely viewer, thank you so much for spending a few minutes out of your day here with me today. You could be anywhere else in the world doing anything else, and you chose to hang out with me for a few minutes, and I really appreciate that. I love you guys. I'm thinking about you, and I will see you in the next video. Mwah. Bye, guys.
Discapacidad Televisión.
¡Hola, mundo!
Primer canal de televisión dedicado al colectivo de personas con discapacidad desde 2006.
Hola, bienvenidos a Discapacidad Televisión. Recuerda suscribirte para no perderte los últimos estrenos y programas en vivo. Danos un me gusta, y así nos ayudarás a conocerte mejor. Por favor, no te olvides de compartir. Así, más personas podrán disfrutar de Discapacidad Televisión y toda su programación. Muchas gracias.
Cuando una empresa publica una búsqueda laboral, está hablando de lo que necesita, pero también de lo que ofrece. ¿Cómo responden las personas a esa oferta? El BID realizó el primer estudio a gran escala en idioma español para comprender cómo el lenguaje afecta en la decisión de aplicar un empleo en sectores altamente masculinizados, como la construcción, la ingeniería y la programación. El resultado fue categórico. Los anuncios que utilizaban ambos géneros fueron preferidos no solo por parte de las mujeres, sino de los hombres. En el caso de las mujeres, esta práctica aumentó su respuesta en un 43% y un 10% entre los hombres. Cuando además se menciona explícitamente que se ofrece un entorno de trabajo igualitario y diverso, estos valores fueron aún más altos. ¿Qué quiere decir? Que estos avisos de búsqueda laboral demostraron tener muchas más posibilidades de recibir aplicaciones, lo que se traduce en más chances de encontrar la persona perfecta para el puesto. En una región donde la igualdad de género en el trabajo aún es un desafío, la redacción cuidadosa de los avisos de empleo es una herramienta sencilla y costo efectiva que pueden implementar las empresas que estén comprometidas con ser un espacio laboral más igualitario e inclusivo. Y esa es una buena noticia. Es hora de cambiar cómo buscamos nuestros equipos para cambiar cómo somos.
¿Conoces los programas que conforman a la CNDH? 6. Atención a personas con discapacidad. Este importante programa, perteneciente a la primera Visitaduría General, trabaja de manera conjunta con organizaciones de la sociedad civil y dependencias de los 3 órdenes de gobierno, a través de la promoción, difusión, orientación y acompañamiento en casos de presunta vulneración a los derechos humanos de las personas con discapacidad. Además, realiza investigaciones, informes y diagnósticos acerca del estado que guardan los derechos humanos de este sector de la población, a fin de dar a conocer las áreas de oportunidad, coadyuvando con la asertiva toma de decisiones en pro de la inclusión. Si consideras que tus derechos han sido vulnerados, acércate a nosotros. En la Comisión Nacional de los Derechos Humanos, defendemos al pueblo.
Que hoy sometemos a consideración de todos ustedes su más reciente obra, TDAH, Trauma y Propósito, un camino entretejido.
Le reclamé al Señor que por qué a mí, si ya me había castigado anteriormente con lo que relato en mi libro. ¿Por qué me manda un hijo con discapacidad? Y me dijo otra vez, porque quiero que ayude a muchas personas que están pasando por el mismo problema que tú.
¿Qué es la discapacidad? La discapacidad es un concepto que evoluciona y que resulta de la interacción entre las personas con deficiencias y las barreras debidas a la actitud y al entorno que evitan su participación plena y efectiva en la sociedad, en igualdad de condiciones con las demás. Convención de las Naciones Unidas sobre los Derechos de las Personas con Discapacidad. ¿Cuántos tipos de discapacidad existen? Las personas con discapacidad incluyen a aquellas que tengan deficiencias físicas, mentales, intelectuales o sensoriales a largo plazo, que al interactuar con diversas barreras puedan impedir su participación plena y efectiva en la sociedad en igualdad de condiciones con los demás. Convención de las Naciones Unidas sobre los Derechos de las Personas con Discapacidad. ¿Cuál es la manera correcta de referirse a quienes tienen una discapacidad? Incorrecta. Discapacitado, personas con capacidades diferentes o persona que sufre una discapacidad. Correcta, personas con discapacidad. Incorrecta, cieguito, invidente o minusválido. Correcta, persona con discapacidad visual o persona ciega. Incorrecta, sordo, sordomudo o sordito. Correcta, persona con discapacidad auditiva o persona sorda. Incorrecta, inválido, discapacitado o cuadrapléjico. Correcta, persona con discapacidad física. Incorrecta, mongolito, deficiente, retrasado o discapacitado mental. Correcta, persona con discapacidad intelectual. Incorrecta. Loco, demente o bipolar. Correcta. Persona con discapacidad psicosocial. Siempre antepon la condición de persona y después la circunstancia de su discapacidad. Por una cultura inclusiva de las personas con discapacidad. Comité de Accesibilidad para Personas con Discapacidad. Anáhuac, México.
En este video abordaremos el uso y cuidados básicos para un buen funcionamiento de sus audífonos, así que presta atención a estas recomendaciones. 1. Encendido y apagado. Para encender sus audífonos, simplemente cierre la caja de la pila y para apagarlo, abra la caja. Este simple paso va a contribuir a la durabilidad de sus baterías. 2. Verificación de funcionamiento. Puede comprobar que el audífono esté funcionando al tocar la parte de arriba del audífono con uno de sus dedos. Si escucha el chirrido, entonces está funcionando. 3. Duración de la pila. La duración de las pilas se relaciona al tiempo de uso. Los audífonos se deben ocupar todo el día, todos los días, excepto para dormir y para bañarse. Si eso es así, las pilas deben durar aproximadamente entre 7 a 10 días. 4. Identificación de oído. Cada audífono tiene una marca para el oído correspondiente. Si la marca es roja, es para el oído derecho, y si es azul, es para el oído izquierdo. 5. Limpieza adecuada. Todos los días se debe limpiar los audífonos. La limpieza se realiza con un paño seco. Para eso, primero tiene que separar el molde del audífono, limpiarlo con el paño y con el cepillo retirar todo el cerumen que pueda estar dentro del molde. El molde se puede lavar una vez a la semana con las pastillas de limpieza o con un jabón neutro, asegurándose siempre de mantenerlo bien seco, ayudándose con una pera de secado. Siga estas recomendaciones para una mayor durabilidad y provecho de sus audífonos. Para mayor información visita nuestra página web cenadis.gov.cl.
Ministerio de Desarrollo Social y Familia, Gobierno de Chile. Chile avanza contigo.
Nací en Cali, Valle. Mi padre tenía un bar cervecero. A eso de los 20 años tuve el accidente en el mismo negocio familiar, que de allí fue que quedé así, pero prácticamente discapacitado. Transcurrió todo el tiempo así, cuando yo estaba trabajando con un primo. Ahí fue cuando hubo un inconveniente, me tocó que salí del país. No dije nada, sino de que me voy. Salí, de una vez me vine ya para Ecuador. Yo no sabía qué era, por lo menos, refugio. Uno podía dialogar sobre eso y para quedarse en un país, que tenía ayuda, ¿no? Al tiempo de no recordar de que me dijeron otras personas que ANUR quedaba por ahí mismo, que porque no iba a tomar refugio. Primero a mí me dieron para arriendo, comida, poder trabajar, que una persona que tanto como por discapacidad como por refugiado tengo ciertos derechos, siempre han estado a mi lado. ¿Para qué? Con mi señora trabajamos en el parque municipal, lustrando zapatos, pintando zapatos, reformándolos. De eso es lo que hoy en día vivo muy tranquilo. Como me fascina tanto el deporte, siempre he estado con el Club Sin Paro aquí en Santo Domingo. Muchas veces sí, he dejado de hacer mi trabajo por irme a jugar. Me gusta más que todo tener amigos, me gusta tener muchas motivaciones. Lo vivo muy agradecido.
Definitivamente para mí desde que se abrió el metro, fue una ayuda maravillosa. Ya no tengo como que levantarme con 2 horas de anticipación para poder irme a la universidad, ¿no? Sino que todo ese tiempo lo utilizo para estudiar, lo utilizo para hacer mis deberes.
En mi caso, yo puedo contar que mi estrés ha disminuido totalmente. Llego tranquilo y frescamente al trabajo y también no estoy con la preocupación de que tengo que salir rápido porque el tráfico es terrible.
Lamentablemente por mi discapacidad tenía que movilizarme en los buses urbanos que les llaman. Los choferes, hay muchos de ellos que no son amables, entonces se me hacía muy difícil. Para nosotros el metro sí ha sido una gran ayuda. Cuenta con el ascensor, cuenta con las rampas donde puede entrar la silla de ruedas. Entonces ahí se le hace un poquito más fácil a mi hijo empujar la silla, subirme, todo eso.
Por ejemplo, cuando vienen personas con discapacidad, el personal del Metro de Quito ingresa a los vagones, les ubica dentro de los asientos o en las zonas preferenciales para las personas con silla de ruedas y pues una vez que les dejan ubicados, ahí recién salen y pues continúa el trayecto el tren.
Esos días de trasladarme al centro de Quito, que para mí había sido históricamente o ir en carro o ir en bus, era realmente complejo. Entonces ir en 10-15 minutos, estar en el centro de Quito era algo mágico. En realidad llegar y descubrir en ese momento de una cosa tan rápida, eso me resultó realmente placentero.
Yo vivo en el sur de Quito y pues la mayoría de las instituciones en las que incluso podemos hacer prácticas se encuentran en el centro o en el norte. Entonces yo creo que en caso de que pues llegue a trabajar en una de estas instituciones, definitivamente el sistema de transporte nos ayudaría muchísimo, claro, para incluso no tener que cambiarnos de residencia para poder acceder a estas plazas de trabajo.
Sí, les diría que prueben, que se atrevan, que sí es factible, sí es importante para nosotros estas facilidades que nos da el metro.
El Metro de Quito yo creo que es el proyecto más importante de las últimas décadas en la ciudad. El Metro de Quito nos ha puesto en movimiento y es la gran oportunidad para construir una ciudadanía corresponsable.
Me encanta cómo se está construyendo toda esta cultura de respeto, de cordialidad, como que se están retornando a los valores de la gente quiteña cálida, amable, como siempre ha sido.
Vamos a contar una historia, la historia de Yara, Mario, Luca, Yaiza, Elia, Dani y de muchos otros niños y niñas que acudimos a la ludoteca inclusiva del Centro de Atención Infantil y Juvenil de APAM.
Aquí nuestro objetivo es jugar y sobre todo hacerlo con lo que queramos y entre nosotros. Lo que pasa que a veces parece que estamos jugando al teléfono estropeado y no nos entendemos entre nosotros. Y menudo lío se crea cuando jugamos.
No tiene gafas.
¿Es una bicicleta?
Sí. No estoy viendo. No entiendo.
Ya sé.
¿Soy un instrumento? Sí, soy un instrumento. ¿Es de madera?
¿Tiene coleta?
Soy un tambor.
Sí. Y en otras ocasiones los juguetes temen por su vida.
¿Sabías que existen mitos en torno al Registro Nacional de la Discapacidad y a la credencial de discapacidad? Por ejemplo, 1. Tener la credencial de discapacidad vulnera los derechos de las personas con discapacidad y las estigmatiza. Falso. La credencial es un registro para conocer dónde están las personas con discapacidad y mejorar políticas públicas, velando por sus derechos y derribando prejuicios. 2. Con la credencial de discapacidad, estás inscrito en el Senadis. Falso. La credencial es un documento entregado por el Registro Civil y no por Senadis. 3. Al sumarse al Registro Nacional de la Discapacidad y obtener la credencial, las personas con discapacidad intelectual o psíquica serán declaradas interdictas. Falso. El proceso de interdicción es establecido por un tribunal de justicia. 4. Al estar en el Registro Nacional de la Discapacidad, las personas con discapacidad podrán obtener la pensión de invalidez. Falso. La pensión de invalidez es un trámite distinto a la credencial de discapacidad. 5. El porcentaje de la credencial de discapacidad condiciona la posibilidad de tener mayores beneficios sociales. Falso. El porcentaje de tu credencial no influye en la entrega de beneficios. Recuerda, la inscripción en el Registro Nacional de la Discapacidad es tu decisión. Mi decisión, mi credencial. Súmate al Registro Nacional de la Discapacidad.
Innovar para mejorar vidas en una región con más de 650 millones de personas. A eso se dedica BED Lab como laboratorio de innovación del Grupo BED, la principal fuente de financiamiento y conocimiento para el desarrollo enfocada en América Latina y el Caribe. BED Lab trabaja con diversos actores de ecosistemas de innovación para impulsar proyectos y emprendimientos tempranos con potencial de generar impacto a gran escala en beneficio de poblaciones en situación vulnerable por condiciones económicas, sociales o ambientales. BED Lab, innovación para la inclusión en América Latina y el Caribe.
Discapacidad Televisión.
¡Hola mundo!
Primer canal de televisión dedicado al colectivo de personas con discapacidad desde 2006.
Hola, bienvenidos a Discapacidad Televisión. Recuerda suscribirte para no perderte los últimos estrenos y programas en vivo. Danos un me gusta, y así nos ayudarás a conocerte mejor. Por favor, no te olvides de compartir. Así, más personas podrán disfrutar de Discapacidad Televisión y toda su programación. Muchas gracias.